Have you ever felt lost, confused, or indecisive, and then suddenly a feather just appeared in your path, and instantly you just knew the answer to all of your questions? Or maybe friends and family keep buying you animal themed things, and you're wondering, why do I have like 10 pairs of frog knickers or owl cushions? And you want to understand, why is this animal turned up in my life? Or perhaps an animal has appeared to you in a dream and you're wondering, what does this symbolize? What does this mean? How can this help me with my current challenge or obstacle? This is why I have created the YouTube series Animal with myself and guests that's going to offer you insight into what is the magic, the myth, the medicine of the animal kingdom. What does it mean to have a spirit guide that is a particular animal, and how can they support you in your life's journey, in your healing, and in your connection to self? So whether you are seeking an animal guide, or you want to understand yours better, or maybe even yourself better, or perhaps you're just curious about the symbology, the mythology, the wisdom, medicine, and magic of animals, then this is the perfect series of interviews for you. An easy and accessible way to understand the relevance of animal spirit guides to you, along with practical tips and tools for integrating the wisdom of animals into your everyday life and into your spiritual practice. Now let us fly, gallop, and dive into this episode and the support and inspiration that will empower you. Hey, so welcome to this episode of Animal, which is exploring the magic, the myth, and the medicine of our animal companions. So this episode, I'm super excited to have Carla with me. So I'm just going to share a little bit about her before I introduce her and welcome her in. So Carla is an ancient historian specializing in the worship and cult of Artemis. She is the author of She Who Hunts, Artemis, the Goddess Who Changed the World, and the forthcoming She Who Endures, the cult and iconography of Artemis of Ephesus. Carla is the founder of the Artemis Research Center, an international project that maps ancient sanctuaries and traces Artemis's influence across the Mediterranean world. And Carla is going to be sharing all about deer today with us. And when we first got introduced, I saw like this beautiful, like golden magical stag, and I just kind of knew that this was meant to be. So I'm super excited to have Carla here sharing all about the magic of deer. So thank you for being here and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for posing this interesting sort of thought question, which then led me to think about what are the animals that I connect with, and that in turn also connect with Artemis. So it's been quite wonderful to think about, and now for us to share would be great. Yeah.
I'm excited to get into this. So let's start with, what is the magic of deer? So if people have, a deer companion or spirit guide, what does it mean? Like what does deer especially kind of symbolize or offer as their medicine?
So deer are an interesting animal, and I personally had not thought of them as an animal I connected with for a long time because I'm a Capricorn, so there's a lot of goats in my life. I was born in the year of the tiger, so there's a lot of tiger in my life. Um, and it wasn't until I really started connecting on a more or less academic level with Artemis. Sorry, a less academic, yeah, a less academic level with Artemis that I started thinking about deer, because deer were so much her symbol to me. Like, of course, there are also symbols for her, like the bears and dogs and sometimes wolves, but the deer are the ones that really stood out. And so when I started thinking about deer, the first thing I thought of was, well, they're prey, and they're very soft and peaceful and loving, the impression of loving, right? Because of their softness, very Bambi-ish, right? Very fawn-ish. And so I thought, well, I mean, what aspect of that is me? Like, I don't know, I don't know. Um, and then as I thought more and more about deer, I also realized that they are symbolisms of resilience, quiet strength, pack, they're herd animals, pack animals. Um, a long thought symbol of things like intuition, in the sense of like rest, thoughts come when you're resting. Thoughts when intuition comes when you are not aggressively hustling. They are survivors, they are gentle. And so what I realized is that, so this was a learning for me, because what I realized is that some of these qualities were qualities that I had hidden, like had pushed down, in myself, because I thought of myself as go, get, do, blah, 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 right?
Hmm.
Um, so it's interesting that at this point in my life, the deer has come, I think, to teach me patience, resilience, survival through the winter, um, you know, and a whole new way of looking at life. So I don't know if that really answers your questions, but it's really powerful when you're living in a, let's say, in a raw tiger frame of mind, and then suddenly you are uh, attuned to think about, well, what about this particular symbol, this particular animal? And why does it keep coming up for you? What is it saying about maybe an area in your life that you've been avoiding? Um, yeah.
It's so interesting that when we have like these animals that come up for us, they can really, yeah, reflect parts of us, or sometimes those parts that we can't see or don't want to see, or it's so different for everybody. Like, every student, or even the people that have been guests on this, the animals have come forward, for so many different reasons, as in, like, they've been inspiration, or they've been teachers, or they've been reflections. And so it's interesting, the kind of the medicine that deer offers uniquely, because you shared a few different things there, and people might relate to one or the other, definitely. So I'd actually love for you to share more about the connection between deers and Artemis, because I know a lot of my audience are really interested in Goddess, and obviously in my school, I'm all about wolf wisdom. So I've shared Artemis kind of from a wolf point of view. And we consider her kind of like the maiden wolf. But I'd love for you to share about Artemis as the deer. Like, why does she have a deer as her companion? Why that symbol?
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So historically speaking, hunting deer in Greece and in some of the areas of the Med and things like that, the Mediterranean, were part of life. So, this was literally food. So there's a practical aspect. Artemis is the goddess of the wild, and deer, I think, are the perfect symbol of both nourishing, so food, survival, etc., and softness. So because Artemis is the goddess that protects children, that protects the young, that protects women, there is a softness, a feminine quality to deer, just based on their energy, their essence, their behavior, their animal behavior. And so her association with deer is fascinating to many people, because she is both a huntress and a protectress. So the deer show up with her, but she also hunts deer.
Mm-hmm.
And then she also has favorite deer that, for example, when Agamemnon or others brag about either being better hunters or kill some of her favorite deer, she gets really irked and punishes them. So I think this paradox is both a symbol of the potency of Artemis as a goddess. That is, she's not just a hunter goddess. She is a complex goddess that embodies the liminal spaces between life and death, between predator and prey. Um, and I think the deer is a perfect example of that, that there is this strength and resilience um, in softness. So sometimes people, I mean, Artemis is a tough goddess. She is a hard goddess, sometimes to work with. She demands a great deal of commitment, sacrifice, dedication. She is a goddess that is sovereign into herself and is independent. It doesn't need anyone or anything. And like I said, in some cults, I mean, we think of her traditionally of the huntress, but she's got numerous cults throughout Greece. And some of her cults are quite bloody. Her cults in Sparta were very bloody. Her cults in the Caledon were quite bloody. The rituals associated with her here are very, very bloody. So in a way, the deer balances that in its softness and vulnerability, right? Like the deer, I want to say the deer for her is what the deer does for me in many ways. Although she probably already knew it before it took me 50 years to get here, which is like there is softness in hardness, right? Like there is, in fact, there's more softness in hard. I used to say to myself, I used to say to people, you know, I'm really soft on the outside because I'm very friendly and very whatever, but I'm really hard on the inside. Do you know what I mean? Also Capricorn, you know. Yeah. And but I think that for a lot of us, we have to be hard, sometimes both on the outside and on the inside, to protect ourselves, to feed ourselves, to nourish our family, etc. Artemis offers that. She offers a kind of hardness, right? But I think the deer is the perfect symbol for her that visually shows us the softness,
Yeah.
but also visually shows us that she's very protective of the things that she loves. And I think certainly for women and for me as a mother and as a academic and as a, there are multi layers and complexities to our existence. That is, you can be both hard, let's say as a parent, both hard and soft, as a friend, as a etc., both as a teacher, both hard and soft. And I think there are multiple symbols for hardness and toughness, fewer symbols for that softness that resonate, you know? And the deer play that role. And for me, the deer have always been something I want to protect, I want to hug, I want to hold, I want to feed, you know, I'm fascinated by them. They very rarely show themselves to me, which is really interesting. I always complain because, first of all, I live in a forest. And I've been here forever and I almost never see deers, except for the one time when Artemis sent me one, which was this summer, which was at a really low time in my life. And sometimes in the winter, my neighbors will put out deer feed, so they'll come to eat. But what I mean is to me, it feels like an elusive animal to me, while everyone else, you know, people go for a walk and they're like, oh, we saw deer. And I'm like, I go for a walk all the time. I don't see them. And so what I realize is that when they come to me in life, is very purposeful. It's intentional as some kind of a message that I need to like listen to. And so this is why when you asked me, what is the animal? And I thought, yeah, especially lately, it's been the deer because it seems to be an animal that is coming at intentional and purposeful times. And there's a message there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
deer.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. And thank you for sharing that because I think we've discussed this with a few of us now kind of in this series that a lot of people feel very drawn to like the big and obvious kind of characters, I suppose, and everybody wants to have a lion or something as their kind of their big protector, but those softer gentler animals can offer their own unique protection as well. And I love what you were saying about the paradox and the complexity of Artemis. And that's something that I've always related to. Like I feel like that makes her not human, but you can feel kind of if she kind of embodies that, then so can I can accept that in myself as well. And
yeah, and that's one of the kind of the main teachings of my school as well. And I love that because, you know, especially as women, I think that we feel that we have to be that one side of the scale where it is soft, gentle and kind, and that means like bending over backwards and letting people walk over us and always being kind and always being gentle. But actually we need that for ourselves as well, and that's when it can become that tough strength, you know, is when we're actually trying to be kind to ourselves, and that means putting up like boundaries and barriers and, you know, whatever kind of that that means for us. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's really insightful.
Yeah. And you know, it's something I've had to learn because like I said, there is even, you're right, you're absolutely right. We are, and I, you know, I spent many years being a people pleaser and a family pleaser, especially, and I'm the firstborn, and you know, we came to this country as refugees, and there's lots in the story that has forced me to be tough. And so it's like that part I know, but then there's also the provider and all of these aspects of my life. And the deer, like I said, at first it kind of the softness represented a weakness. I had to really come to terms with that the deer is not like a child that I'm protecting or my family that I'm protecting. That actually the deer is something in me that I don't often think about because we put ourselves last. Um, and that we may need a little bit more time loving and accepting, like, you know, I think a lot about, for example, the younger version in me of me, and I have to do a lot of work with that. I have to do a lot of work with being kind to myself and my own self-talk, which, and I think the deer has really started to show up when so sorry, now I'm sidetracking, but when I left my ex-husband, which was a couple of years ago, I had a dream about a year before, maybe a little bit less, of bears. Bears were breaking into my house, and I don't have very many dreams. So these are every now and then I have these dreams. Bears were breaking into my house. They weren't trying to harm me, but they were breaking into my house, and I kept trying to run away in the next room, and they were pushing the door, and I kept trying. And I knew in that sense that the bear was the animal that I needed in order to come out of this situation. And that was the tool that I needed. Okay. Then I'm out, and suddenly more and more of these deer imageries start to show up after a bit. So in the last year or so, maybe a little bit more. And again, at first I thought, okay, this is very fawn. We use the word fawn for a reaction too, right? Like flight, fawn, freeze, right? And in many ways, I was fawning in my life. And so again, you start to think, well, maybe I don't want that. Like, I don't want to fawn in my life anymore. I need to heal that and overcome that and hustle out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I had a real tough reaction to the fawn, you know, a predisposed sort of, no, no more fawning, no more. And I think that it was this summer when I was really, I was really at a low point, and I remember sitting on my deck and just talking to her like, I don't flipping know. I don't know, you know, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on. If you want to just take it all, just take it all. I don't know. Okay. And we had a moment. I had a moment. And the next morning, it was like I wake up very, very early in the morning, and I heard something in my backyard, you know. And I knew the minute I jumped out of bed, because there's lots of animals around us, right? I knew it was a deer. Like I knew it was a deer. I knew it was a female deer. I was like, no, it can't be because deer never come in my backyard. I mean, they just don't come. But I knew it. Anyway, I look out the window. There she is. I filmed her. I took pictures of her because I had to tell everyone. But she came. And so it forced me to think about, what does she mean? Okay, first of all, I think in part it means Artemis is saying, I'm here. Like, we're gonna be okay. Keep going, you know? But I also think in part her message is, it's not a wolf that's coming, you know, it's not a big bear that's coming. It's not that, that's not what you need right now for the next little while. It's this beautiful, happy, soft female deer that was just eating away near my fire pit. And I just wanted to hug her. And then she just kind of looked at me. And I thought, oh, I really have to face myself. I really have to face this fawn, this concept of softness. And so ever since then, I've been working on how to be that in my life, I guess.
Wow. And it is hard, you know, because we get so much in the busyness and the hustle all the time, and expectations and kind of generalizations as well. And, you know, we compare ourselves, and we almost don't give ourselves time to just stop, or to be gentle, or to be soft. You know, we kind of, there's this almost kind of performance aspect, you know, that's kind of going on all the time. Yeah, and I can imagine, even just like you talking now, I can kind of feel that gentleness kind of coming forward, you know, that kind of like that peace. And I suppose maybe that's why they're elusive, maybe because, you know, we're kind of looking, when things are there and apparent, they're very kind of like, I don't know how to put it into words, but, you know, if they're there and busy, or say like, I'm thinking like it's a bee like buzzing around, buzz, 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 buzz. Where if they're in the forest, rather than coming to us, we have to go into the forest to go to them. We have to go into kind of that darkness, into that rest time, into that peace, away from home, away from the city, away from, you know, the work. We have to kind of like retreat with them. So it's like, come here to me, you know, I'm not coming to you, you come into my my forest realms.
Yeah. Yes. And it's funny that you say that, because just today, because it's a full moon today, just today I was thinking, you know, for the next couple of months, I'm going to try and work on resting. Like I'm going to try and work on reading and resting. I mean, I still have to work. We're all working. I mean, so this is already sort of a given in our lives. You know, we're working, we're hustling, we're moving from here to here. I have to run errands. But I said to myself this morning, I'm like, no, you know what? The next couple of, I think now it's time to rest, and to rest the nervous system. And so I feel like at this point, I'm starting to embrace the deer. Like I have worked on self-talk a lot. And I have worked on being gentle with myself, like encouraging myself. I do this thing. I normally don't say this in public, but I do this thing sometimes when I don't want to do something. Lately, just lately, when I don't want to do something, I will start talking to myself like a baby, you know, like a five, like I would talk to my daughter when she was 5. Like, come on, Carla, get off the couch. Okay, 5 more minutes. Okay, 5 more minutes. Okay, but we have to get this done today. Okay, let's just stand up. Come on, Carla, you know, and I do this kind of little baby talk with myself, which is crazy. Because if you told me this at 20 something, I would have laughed. I would have been like, this is absurd. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. But it works because it's better than what I used to do, which is get up, do it. Why aren't you doing it? What's going on with you? Why are you being so lazy? What's wrong? Is there something physically wrong? Is there, you know, what's going, you know, this is a lot more softer. And I think of myself sometimes like, and you've probably heard this, the idea that how would you talk to a 5-year-old if they were going through something, or how would you, you know, and I think about that because I think having had a really rough youth with all the stuff that I went through, there wasn't time for a lot of softness, not from me, not from my parents. You know, there was a lot of survival. And I also think that because now at 50, as life goes on, we tend sometimes to lean towards a little more bitterness. We tend to lean, like people around me are quite judgmental of themselves, some very angry with their lives. You come through this phase of life where you look back and you're like, oh, I should have done that. I should have done that. And I do some of that too, especially with the divorce. I was married for 26 years, and there are times where I'm like, oh man, I should have left earlier. I should have done this. I should have, you know. Then you look at your career and you look at, so it you could see it in yourself and around you that people are becoming a little more brittle. And again, I think the deer is a perfect messenger to say like, hey, you know, softness, it's okay. No one lives a life with no like regrets or no things that maybe they could have done. Like, that's not how you live a life. When you live a life, you make choices, you know, and no one has like 2020 vision, you know, backwards. So again, I think the deer has come at a really great time for me when it's almost like the goddess is like, here is a bunch of softness, like here is softness, softness, softness. Don't forget, because I so easily lean into the other aspects, right? So it's been quite a blessing to recognize the sign, actually, and to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you were saying that, I was thinking about kind of like Artemis, and like I've always kind of, people always go like, because she can be a bit harsh, she can be a bit kind of like intense, but I've always kind of felt her kind of like this. She welcomes people in, like, you know, whether they're you know, like I was thinking of Atalanta when you were talking, and how she, you know, welcomes a baby into her realm, and she welcomes people into, like, you know, to be her maidens. And she like has this motherly kind of like, I'm gonna nurture you and look after you and nourish you and teach you how to survive, you know, and not teach you how to survive by being harsh, by being cold, by being a, you know, a money tycoon or whatever, but actually by being at one with nature and being in that softness, you know. I was really feeling that kind of coming across then, you know, like this. And I know she is the maiden, but she really does have this kind of like big sister energy, you know, doesn't she?
That's interesting that you say that, because I think of her often as a mentor or a big sister. I think of her often that way. Sometimes tough, because I need tough. Like, I'm a hard-headed, very independent person. And so sometimes her love, I feel, has to be tough for me, because I will just be like, no, I'm going to do it my way. And she's like, no, actually, you're going to do it my way. And if you don't like it, I'm going to tear down your whole world so that you could do it my way. Because, you know, so there's this, you know, our relationship, I always call her like a collaborator in my life, because we are working together for my best interest. Thank the goddess that she's, you know, that she's willing to do that. And I like I said, I like her toughness. I think I respond to her toughness. Is familiar to me. It's what I know best. Um, but the softness in her is something that um, I'm learning to be with myself. Because I think we can be, like you said, soft with other people. That's just a natural uh, behavior that we've been taught. But soft with ourselves, oh, no, no, that's much tougher. And the deer are the perfect symbol, because they are resilient. I mean, there is a toughness to deer. You know what I mean? They're resilient in both scavenging and both figuring out safety, resilient in keeping the herd protected. They can be quite aggressive as well. I mean, you've seen deer attack people when they're upset. This is not an animal you want to get into a fight with. So there is a toughness to the deer, but I think it's, again, one of these animals that's underestimated. You know, it's like we mistake their softness for weakness often. And because they are hunted for our food, there is also an element of sacrifice and nourishment there, which also I think teaches us appreciation for the abundance that we have, like thinking about how we are nourished, you know, thinking about, for example, how we eat, but not necessarily only physically, but metaphorically as well. Um, Thinking about, for example, how hunting got so many people through the winters, and obviously the rest of the year, but certainly the hard winters. Um, and so that in one way we are, by ingesting the deer, by hunting, eating the deer, and then also having the deer in our lives, we are almost like um, transfused. We are one, you know, on a cellular level, and then at a spiritual level as well. I mean, it is true that, you know, today we are not as spiritually connected to the animals that we hunt, but certainly in the ancient world, and even, for example, here, natives and indigenous people in Canada, they honored the animals that they hunted that fed them through the winter. I mean, it's a long tradition across the world. So the deer play that role of like saving us in a sense, allowing us to survive while they also have to fight to survive, So they're quite a powerful symbol when we start thinking about them in that way. I think I didn't think about them in that way for a long time until they just started showing up everywhere.
Yeah. It's obviously the exact medicine that you needed at that time. And it just goes to prove, how animals can be such, can be teachers. We think of them, just as those that are living around us, but they are profound teachers. And I found sometimes that actually they can be a really good access point to the gods and goddesses, that actually they will kind of, that aspect of them as the animal will come forward rather than the goddess themselves, because sometimes the god or goddess can be, I don't want to say too much, but quite intense. So kind of the animal aspect is a certain part of them that almost like an intermediary, that you're learning kind of this part of them, and then so seeing that part in yourself, and they can kind of be a really useful gateway. So kind of to bring this kind of to our audience now and their own experiences, if someone wanted to connect to deer, or like happened with you, deer was coming forward as a guide, how would you kind of advise them, or what tips or tools would you give them to connect to deer themselves?
That's a great question. Well, I think the immediate connection is to be in nature. So going outside and being in the forest is such an important part of healing and deer medicine. Even if you don't see the deer, like I'm in the forest. Ironically, I'm now living in a forest, which I didn't, I know I lived in cities most of my life. So it seems like she almost went over here, actually. So this allows for not just being in the forest, like walking in the wild, but just being in the atmosphere in which, for example, deers are living along with other animals. So I think that there is a physical experience of going outside and being in the forest. In doing that, though, I think there are different moods for being in the forest and thinking of deer versus being in the forest and thinking of wolves or bears. I think there are different intentions. So if you're working with a deer and you're in the forest, I think one of the things to think about is to notice the softness, like the moss, the softness of moss, um, the growth of mycelium and mushrooms, the falling of leaves if you're in the fall, like the quiet silence falling of. So there is something about going into the forest intentionally looking for how the forest is soft. Because, and by soft, I guess I would also think resilient. To me, soft and resilient are starting to overlap. Like there is something about, it's like water, water's soft, but yet it could be quite powerful and clearly very resilient. So when I think of moss, when I think about mycelium, when I think about mushrooms, when I think about the way the trees are interconnected under me, that feels soft. And yet it is a survival since, the beginning of time, right? So there is something resilient in that softness. And so I would say that's one of the ways to connect. I mean, if you're lucky enough, I mean, I have several friends who send me pictures of deer all the time, and they have deer that come up to their doors. And they have deer, they're walking, and some deer are walking there too. And I'm like, and they send me these. So if you're lucky enough to have deer literally coming into your life on a regular basis, then that is even more, I think, of a meditative and connected moment. And you have to figure out, what is that message for you if it keeps coming up, right? Like perhaps there's an intuitive message that's coming to you. I'm not there, the goddess sends me lots of squirrels, and lots of this morning I saw some turkeys on my hill, wild turkeys, but the deer so I was really upset for a long time. Actually, one time I was in BC with my friend Cornelia, and she also lives on this island full of deer, and she's always like, oh my God, deer are always coming around. She has this big property, they're always coming around, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, great. And I'm there and I'm there and I'm there and no deer are coming. Okay. And I'm like, so I go one day, I was there for 3 weeks. I go and I say to her, I don't get it. Like, I don't get why she's not letting me see the deer. Everyone's seeing the deer, but I'm not seeing it. Then I go into the office where I was working while I was with her. And I swear, like 12 deer come to the window. Okay. And I filmed that too because I was so excited. And I was like, okay, goddess. It was almost like she's like, okay, do you want deer? Like, do I have to like spell out for you that I'm here for you? Here's a ton of deer. You know?
Mm-hmm.
So I laughed because it seemed almost like an inside joke because it was like I was just literally just complaining. And usually they were on the bottom side of the house. So I wasn't expecting them on the top. And it was like they all came. And I was like, oh, okay, I got it. I got it. So what I think is like you have to figure out, like I said, some people get overwhelming deers. They see them all the time. So that could be a certain message for them. For me, I think she's using them at certain moments. So she's trying to spell something out for me at certain times. And in some cases in a humor way, like, and in some cases in a much more powerful and impactful way, like this summer, which is like, I really needed that. I really needed that deer that morning. Like I really needed that deer. And when I saw it, I went, okay, she's here with me. She hasn't left me. We're going to be okay. Even though nothing had changed from the evening to the morning, there was just an absolute confirmation that it's going to be okay. And it was afterwards, like things started going better and things are going good now. So, yeah, so it was a powerful messenger for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it sounds like a good reminder of like all things in the right time. Like, often we try to force things. Like, often we say that when we're making prayers or invocations, it's like, I want this, this, and this right now. And the divine light is like, I can see the whole plan, and actually, perhaps it doesn't fit yet. Or, yeah, you're looking out of this window at this time, but actually you're meant to see it in this window at a later time, then they invite you into this place of surrender. And often they say, don't they, that we find things when we're not looking for them. We have to kind of come into that place of surrender ourselves and just say, actually, it's okay if I never ever see anything out that window ever again, because I'm okay. And then often that's when you look out and see the beautiful you, no matter what it is. Yeah.
It's so true. It's so true. And I think this is in part why animals are so important in our lives. And I'm fascinated with the idea that different animals come in our lives at different times. I mean, sometimes you have a totem animal, for example, for your whole life. But often for me, I'm finding that different animals come at different times. And I don't think that the deer will ever go away as a symbol of this moment and also this sort of self-healing and self-love part. But right now at this stage, I think this is the symbol and the messenger that I'm needing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh, thank you so much for all of this medicine and magic and mythology that you shared with us. It's been really insightful. And if anybody has any questions, anything that's been mentioned, then please do put it in the comments below this video, and then we'll try and get that answered for you. Or, your biggest takeaway, if you're really resonating with this. And again, please do let us know. That would be lovely to hear. And yes, thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom about deer. It has been absolutely fascinating, and I can feel their calm and their peace. And I'm sure that we can all appreciate now the medicine that they are. We'll be even more super excited when they appear in the forest or in our dreams. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for being a guest here as well.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for having these conversations. I think that they are really our medicine. And just like animals come into our lives, I think sometimes also these moments of coming across a podcast or an episode that really resonates with us, I think it's wonderful. So thank you so much for having me and letting me share these stories.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much. And yeah, this whole like series has been absolutely just mind-blowing. Like, I feel very privileged to be the host because I'm hearing all of this medicine. Every single person has a unique take on a unique animal, and I'm always blown away by how amazing the animal kingdom is and how much they give. But this has just absolutely affirmed that. So for those watching, there are lots of more episodes on lots of different animals and different guests, different experts that can share all about what the animal kingdom is providing for us, and doing so unconditionally and with the fullest love and devotion. So go check them out, and I look forward to seeing you in another episode. And as I keep the conversation going in the comments down below, we would love to hear from you. So thank you and take care. See you in the next one.